The 8th Sustainable Development Goal is to promote sustained, inclusive, and sustainable economic growth, full and productive employment, and decent work for all. For the least developed countries, the economic target is to attain at least a 7% annual growth in GDP. Achieving higher productivity will require diversification and upgraded technology, along with innovation, entrepreneurship, and the growth of small and medium-sized enterprises. Some targets are for 2030s, while others are for 2020. The target for 2020 is to reduce youth unemployment and operationalize a global strategy for youth employment. Implementing the Global Jobs Pact of the International Labour Organization is also mentioned. Strengthening domestic financial institutions and increasing aid for trade support for developing countries is considered essential to economic development. The enhanced integrated framework for trade-related technical assistance to least developed countries is mentioned as a method of achieving sustainable economic development. Sustainable Development Goal 9 is to build resilient infrastructure, promote inclusive and sustainable industrialization, and foster innovation. This goal includes striving for resilience in engineering and construction, and urban resilience. Manufacturing is a major source of employment. In 2016, the least developed countries had less manufacturing value and added per capita. The figure for Europe and North America amounted to $4,621 compared to about $100 in the least developed countries. The manufacturing of high products contributes 80% to total manufacturing output in industrialized economies, but barely 10% is the least developed countries. In all the targets, the last of the 7 targets is about universal access to information and communication technology. Mobile cellular signal coverage is the target's indicator and has improved a great deal. In previous unconnected areas of the globe, 85% of people now lives in covered areas. Planet-wide, 95% of the population is covered. Sustainable Development Goal 10 is to reduce income inequality within and among countries. Progress towards Sustainable Development Goal 10 targets calls for the reduction of income inequalities. Second, promoting universal, social, economic, and political inclusion. Third, ensuring equal opportunities and end discrimination. Fourth, adopting fiscal and social policies that promote equality. Fifth, improving regulations of global financial markets and institutions. Sixth, enhancing representation of developing countries in financial institutions. And seventh, responsible and well-managed migration policies. The targets relating to means of achieving goals call for special and differential treatment for developing countries, encourage development assistance and investment in least developed countries, and call for reduction transaction costs for migrant remittances. The first target of Sustainable Development Goal 10 is to sustain income growth of the bottom 40% of the population at rate higher than the national average. This goal, known as shared prosperity, is complementing Sustainable Development Goal 1, the eradication of extreme poverty, and it is relevant for all countries in the world. Sustainable Development Goal 11 is to make cities and human settlements inclusive, safe, resilient, and sustainable. Target 11.1 is to ensure access to safe and affordable housing by 2030. The indicator to measure progress towards the target is the proportion of urban population living in slums or informal settlements. Between the year 2000 and 2014, the proportion fell from 39% to 30%. However, the absolute number of people in slums went from 792 million in 2000 to an estimated 88 million in 2014. Movement from rural to urban areas has accelerated as the population has grown and better housing alternatives are available. Sustainable Development Goal 12 is to ensure sustainable consumption and production patterns. There are 11 targets. The first is to implement the 10-year framework of programs on sustainable consumption and production patterns. The second is to achieve the sustainable management and efficient use of natural resources. Third, reduce by half the per capita global food waste at the retail and consumer levels. Fourth, achieving the environmentally sound management of chemicals and all wastes through the life cycle. Fifth, reducing waste generation through prevention, reduction, recycling, and reuse. Sixth, encourage companies to adopt sustainable practices. Seventh, promote public procurement practices that are sustainable. And eighth, ensure people everywhere have relevant information and awareness for sustainable development. The last three targets are means of achieving targets, and they are the ninth, supporting developing countries to strengthen their scientific and technological capacity. 10th, develop and implement tools to monitor sustainable development impacts. And last but not least, 11th, remove market distortions like fossil fuel subsidies that encourage wasteful consumption. Sustainable Development Goal 13 is to take urgent action to combat climate change and its impacts by regulating emissions and promoting developments in renewable energy. The targets are: first, strengthen resilience and adaptive capacity to climate-related disasters. Second, integrate climate change measures into policies and planning. And third, build knowledge and capacity to meet the challenge of climate change. Means for achieving the targets call for implementing the UN Framework Convention on Climate Change and promoting mechanisms that will increase capacity for planning and management. Sustainable Development Goal 14 is to conserve and sustainably use the oceans, seas, and marine resources for sustainable development. Effective strategies to mitigate adverse effects increased global acidification are needed to advance the sustainable use of oceans. As areas of protected marine biodiversity expand, there has been an increase in ocean scientific funding, essential for preserving marine resources. The deterioration of coastal waters has become a global occurrence due to pollution and coastal eutrophication. While similar contributing factors to climate change can affect oceans and negatively impact marine biodiversity, without concerned efforts, coastal eutrophication is expected to increase in 20% of large marine ecosystems by 2050. Sustainable Development Goal 15 is to protect, restore, and promote sustainable use of terrestrial ecosystems, sustainable manage forests, combat deforestation, and halt and reverse land degradation and halt biodiversity loss. The goal articulates targets for preserving biodiversity of forests, deserts, and mountain ecosystems as a percentage of total land mass. A land degradation neutral world can be reached by restoring degraded forests and land lost to drought and flood. Goal 15 calls for more attention to prevent invasion of introduced species and more protection of endangered species. Forests have a prominent role to play in the success of Agenda 2030, notably in the term of ecosystem services, livelihoods, and green economy. But this will require clear priorities to address key trade-offs and mobilize synergies with other sustainable development goals. This is the end of the video. Thank you for watching. Please give us a like and subscribe to the channel. Click on the tab to see the next part of the video series.